I really appreciate you. Welcome back. This is Nioh True Skill. We're going to go ahead and go over the dual swords and their capabilities in battle. But first and foremost, I forgot one thing. I forgot to fight a remnant. Or, yes, a remnant. Enough fucking Mass Effect on the brain. Probably not even going to be able to play Mass Effect today. But, I forgot to fight a revenant. And the reason you want to see a revenant fight is because revenants have the same weaponry and the same attack animations as the player. They are basically human. They're basically placements for PvP. They're like placeholders for PvP, and they have access to. Look at his toe, Squilliam. Stop! What are you doing? Stop doing that. You're a goofy man. Anyway, they're basically placeholders for human opponents because they have all of the frames, all of the timing, and all of the abilities as human opponents do, with some reaction times turned up to 11 because they're AI. But I decided we would go ahead and use our old whipping boy Lee over here, or Lai, whatever I call him, Lee, because Naomasa has the same attack capabilities as you when you have the spear, so we'll be able to exploit some of the spear's weak points, and I'll be able to show you that by fighting Lee here, Naomasa, now. And I guess it was just important to show you a demonstration of what it's like fighting against a person or an NPC that has the same techniques as you do. But primarily, I'm going to be using the dual swords, and I'm just going to show you the great timing and how successful and how powerful these abilities can be when you use. Remember, the sword's key abilities are parrying. The Water Shadow and Haze are the best parries the sword has, and they are the very mainstay of using a blade. Let's deal with this asshole here. So right now he's in low stance. In fact, he spends a lot of time in low stance. You do not want to try and take him on in low stance. Oh, I forgot he could do that whenever he wanted. Piece of shit. Oh, see, that was a perfect moment. When he's doing something like that, I know that he has to do those three swipes. That attack he did, I think it's called Water Wheel. You have to go through the entirety of the animation of that attack. You have no choice but to. Uh-oh. I'm messing up. And I'm almost dead. Alright, hold on. Oh, that was unfair. The fucking column saved him from that one. I would have got him. But as you can see, the best time to do it is when someone is in an animation or an attack animation you know they can't get out of, or if he's in high stance, because high stance, remember, every high stance has the highest amount of timing to it. Look at that. Even on a boss enemy, stop fucking up. Even on a boss enemy, you can do that. You see, you guys have seen me do that a lot, where I'll use Haze, knock the enemy over. If they don't get knocked over, I'll cut them and knock them over. Then I'll use a final blow, and as they're getting up, I'll switch into high stance, press triangle, and do the overhead slash. Every single time your enemy is getting up from a final blow, that overhead slash will hit them. That's why I use it. It's just free damage. Look at that. So predictable. And this is just Haze I'm using. So predictable. Look at how much damage that is, and I don't have to rely on constantly spamming one ability. Uh-oh. When he's in low stance, you want to stay away from... And this is indicative, he's really indicative of any time you fight a spear NPC. You usually want to stay away from them when they're using low stance, because it's too unpredictable, it's too fast. Although they can complete the full combo of low stance, they usually don't. Let's go ahead and use Water Shadow. Look at that. Look how tight that timing is. Alright, we got him at 50, so we're going to start demonstrating some of the dual swords abilities. So, I won't be able to show you the tree right now because he won't let me. But with dual swords, it has basically the whole point of dual swords is to debilitate your opponent with some type of element on it. Now, it's also about doing high damage per second, which is DPS. So the best thing to use when you're fighting an opponent like this is probably going to be the sword, because you can abuse the fact that they're going to use predictable moves and counter them. But you'll see when I start attacking him, he'll start guarding through my attacks. So dual swords is actually not a good weapon to use when you're fighting humanoid enemies. See? You see that? You see how he started guarding? I'll show you again. Oh shit! Oh, that's my fault. Where are you going? I'm trying not to die, asshole. What you talking about? See that? See that blocking he's doing? Well, that happens when you try to hit a human enemy after hitting them once from the front. That happens after you try to hit them again. They will usually block. So the cool thing about the dual swords is one of its best abilities is when you're in low stance. As you saw me demonstrate, it actually gave me a damage increase. But if you dodge into an enemy's attack, let me try to demonstrate it. If you dodge into an enemy's attack, and technically the attack would have hit you, damn, come on. Let me try to dodge back. You can actually, you have an ability that allows you to, damn, can't hit me. There it is. You see that? Oh shit, I fucked myself. Anyway, when you use that ability, and I'll be able to tell you what it is once I kill him, it will allow you to automatically dodge through their attack where usually you would have gotten hit. And I think I have the highest level of that ability, but it's really good. If you're having a lot of trouble trying to figure out where your enemy is going with their attacks, and you keep getting caught by them in certain areas, you want to go ahead and break out low stance and have that skill equipped, and it'll allow you to get your bearings while having extra protection to dodge enemy attacks. So low stance, did it again. Low stance I don't think has many really powerful abilities. Let me see. Nope, I don't see anything. I'll have to check it out. Okay, good. Okay, so mid stance has this guard attack that I actually showed you. The poke. It's called Demon Thrust. That is really just an attack to. It's not an attack to do damage with. It's really just an attack to punish enemies and stop them if they're aggressing on you, and you don't, you feel like you can't really get a breather in. That will allow you to slow them down, and it's actually really effective against dual swords enemies too, because as they're hitting you, you can block and then demon thrust through them, and it'll stop them from. See? You see that? You see how I let them hit me and then I demon thrusted through and stopped them? That can actually interrupt combos and give you a little bit of punish time. Well, not punish time, because it really just stops them from hitting you. It gives you time to get away. That's the best thing to use that for. So Demon Thrust is useful only in certain circumstances. Other than that, we got that Cherry Blossom. Cherry Blossom is just like Morning Moon with the sword. It's just to do a lot of damage, and I think it's only usable in high stance as well. Let's see if we got any skills equipped. Oh, we got that. We got Water Sword. Water Sword is another one of those abilities that you can spam if you have high damage and kill enemies very quickly. Doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that, under certain circumstances, people can abuse it quite badly. So I can get him in close and hit him like that. You want to be careful, because the entire time you're using Water Sword, it will drain your stamina, and it will drain it pretty quickly. And as far as I know, you're vulnerable to pokes. So I'll go ahead and start. Well, not that. Go into high stance. I'll show you. But Water Sword is an ability that you only want to use on larger opponents that have been stunned for whatever reason. So if you're going up against, say, the yokai that has punches and uses its tongue to hit you a lot, well, once you take their stamina to zero, you'll just start using Water Sword and just cut through them. So you see that? You see how it's vulnerable to pokes? So he can actually attack through it and hit me if I'm not hitting him. But when your opponent is debilitated to the point where they can't defend themselves, that's the time to break it out. And you don't want to do it when you break your opponent's guard either, because they'll just fall over. And if you hit them while they're on the ground, you could actually end up resetting their animation to where they stop. They won't allow you to get a final blow. They'll just like dodge away. So you don't want to do that. You only want to use it on yokai primarily. In fact, the dual swords are really kind of like the bane of yokai's existence, because with dual swords, you know how yokai have hyper armor and they don't block? Well, that actually is a good thing, because what you're able to do with the dual swords is every strike from your sword, even when you hit at the same time, even when you strike at the same time, is actually counted as 2 strikes. You see that? You see how I hit him and he got 2. He got 2 hit. Hold on. Let me see that. There we go. Yeah, I hit him once and he got 2 damage indicators plus the fire indicators that are on my swords. Well, since that happens, it is actually much easier for you to debilitate yokai with elemental abilities. So if your sword has, say, fire on it, or if you throws fire on your weapon, you can then switch to having lightning on your weapon, or you can use these magic missiles and get up the opponent's debilitation bar, and you could end up getting the like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like this this black and purple aura goes around the enemy. When you debilitate them, when you successfully debilitate an enemy with 2 different elements, they get this black and red aura around them, and they become susceptible to everything. Like they have no stamina at all. And I don't know if you can do that on humans. I've never done it on a human, but on yokai, it is extremely, extremely successful in killing them, because what happens is that that particular debilitation has its own bar. Although I don't think you can fill it up once it starts going down. It, like I said, it takes their entire stamina away, so they have no ability to not, to block your attacks or defend against your attacks. You just run up to them, even if they're halfway through an attack animation, and start hitting them, and it'll interrupt everything they do. So if you can, the dual swords are fantastic for debilitating enemies when you're hitting them constantly, especially in low stance. How many times you strike like that? Because the amount of times you strike is actually what affects your debilitation of an enemy. I don't think it has anything to do with the damage that it causes. I think it's more based on the amount of times you hit. So that is a wonderful way to use that. That's why I actually have dual swords with this mage build I'm doing, because I can easily debilitate powerful yokai. Even though the dual swords do less damage than the main sword, than just the sword by itself, they're all about debilitation. That's the whole game of the dual swords. So the main sword is the counter weapon to every other weapon, and the dual swords are the debilitating weapon. So they're better against yokai. If you want to kill a yokai quickly, or if you're having trouble getting a boss yokai's health down, if you debilitate them successfully, you can beat the shit out of them. I think it's a little bit harder for boss yokai because they do the thing where they artificially buff their protections. But if you're just having trouble with some jackass who's in your way, oh my god, these swords can tear them to pieces. Now, one thing that the dual swords do have is counterattacks, but they're not as good, they're not as successful as the sword. And I'll show you now. I showed you before where I was trying to counterattack and it kept missing. But basically you have 3 counterattacks with the dual swords. You have Earthly Flow, Heavenly Flow, and the Shrike. And I think I have the Shrike equipped right now, which is actually the coolest looking one of them all, to tell you the truth. So that timing was pretty good. Look, you see that? You see how you can do that every single time? Whenever you get somebody in a final blow, always when you finish the final blow, switch into high stance and press triangle. With almost every, I'm pretty sure with every weapon, you'll be able to hit them as they're getting up. As long as they're NPCs. If they're player characters, then that's not going to be so easy. Damn, it worked again. I actually didn't want that to work that time because the timing, like I showed you before, the timing for the dual sword is a little different. I think it may have a lot to do with the fact that he's actually crossing the sword's path. Because if an enemy, say, let me do it real quick. If I do this with a strike and an enemy goes under the sword swipe, it won't do the counter. So you need to be very careful about the enemy that you're fighting. Like you saw before in the first video when I was trying to fight just a little humanoid peon, I kept doing the strike at the right time, and it would go right over his sword and he'd hit me anyway. So you got to be careful of that. Heavenly flow and earthly flow are the same way. The timing is very particular, but the enemy actually has to kind of be forward and to the right a little bit, or directly in front of you. I think being close to them might help. So let's see if I can get close to him and do the timing a little weird. Ah, okay, yeah. So that actually helps. You want to be closer to the enemy when you're using the dual swords counterattacks, because I think their hitbox will register as actually hitting the sword, and that will activate the ability. So anyway, now that I have some time to look at them, the dual sword has Sign of the Cross is the dual sword's life strike. It is not as powerful as the actual life strike from the main swords, and really I don't really know why you would use it, to tell you the truth. Maybe if you just want to show off, but it's not really that great. It doesn't go that far. It doesn't have that great a reach, and I think it only has 2 levels. Yeah, it only has 2 levels as opposed to the main sword having 3 levels. See, Lie Quick Strike level 3. Oh yeah, this is the one that actually allows you to go into Lie from holding circle. Yep. And then Sign of the Cross level 2, not Flux, Sign of the Cross level 2, that's the best it can do. It's not really that great. But these are 2 things that I have not unlocked because I haven't cleared the mission, the Grimmest Blades, yet. Not that I can't, because I've actually beaten the guy that you fight in another mission. But I just haven't done it. But these are really cool. Basically, they are attacks, or they are buffs that, with every subsequent attack that you hit an enemy with, as long as you land another one before your timer runs out. Oh shit! What's going on? Hold on, guys. Hello? Yeah, are you coming home? Alright, I see you then. I'm broadcasting. Alright, bye. That's the good old wife. Alright, anyway. So with every subsequent attack, if you go with momentum, it reduces the key usage of the next attack. So it's not going to like make it go forever, but if you were, say you have a yokai damage against them, behind an enemy opponent, or a human opponent, a humanoid opponent, then if, as you saw with Lee, when I would attack like that, well, I would attack once and then try to hit again and he would block it. If you can get around a human enemy without them turning around to block your attacks, you can do an entire combo on them, and there's nothing they can do about it. So if you get something like momentum, you can extend that combo quite a bit, theoretically. I haven't done it myself, but I think that's how it would go. And then there's the one that reduces the amount of damage you take for a time. So they boost your defense with every subsequent attack you land on an opponent. Pretty cool. God of Wind is the basic and most impressive technique of the dual swords, and pretty much every stance I think can utilize God of Wind. Let's see. God of Wind is basically a kick that can continue into, let's see. Nope, only low stance and mid stance can use God of Wind. But God of Wind is a kick that does stamina damage that can actually turn into another attack. It can turn into that, or it can turn it if you press the triangle too fast, like that. Oh, hold on. Let me get my stamina back. If you press triangle too fast, You can do that, the continuation of God of Wind there. So what you'll end up doing is you'll break your enemy's stamina and then you'll hit them, and you can actually end up doing this to where it knocks them onto the ground and readies them for a final blow. But the by far the superior version of God of Wind is to time your kick just perfectly to where when your foot gets to a certain angle, you'll press triangle again and it'll activate this like EX move God of Wind. Like if you know Street Fighter, you know that you have an EX gauge. And when you want to do extra attacks in a special move that you have, you'll use the EX attack to do that. So God of Wind is like using EX moves without needing an EX gauge. So if you time it just right, you'll be able to do the extended version of it, like that. And with those extra attacks, they actually do a lot of stamina damage too, because remember, you're still hitting the enemy twice with your blade. I have broken so many blocks because of that second strike that happens in that move. So God of Wind is something you need to get down the timing of this attack. I think the best thing to do is to face the camera like this and to just go over right at where his foot arcs to the top of his of the crease there, or arcs to the top of his swing. You need to press it. I think I pressed it a little bit too late there. There we go. Oh, that was too early before, but that time it was just on the money. And a lot of times you don't even, like, when you get it down, you're not even going to need to look at him. It just has a certain timing to it that you'll be able to utilize. And I encourage you, if you're going to be using the dual swords in any real way, definitely learn God of Wind, because it is your best art. It is your best technique and your easiest technique to access. This is... I don't really get Tachi arts because it increases the amount of damage that you do against enemies with full life gauges, but I mean, so what? You know what I'm saying? I don't really see the greatness in that. It might be a good ability, but I just don't see it. Anyway, so this is cool. Moonshadow is cool, but it's a risky technique. What Moonshadow does, if you hit an enemy's block like that and you press triangle once, you will dodge around them, and then if you press triangle again, you'll actually do an attack. The problem with this is that Moonshadow actually gives your opponent enough time to turn around and hit you. So if you're facing an NPC, I've had times where I used Moonshadow and it went perfectly, and I broke, I broke the enemy's block, or I hit the enemy and stopped them from hitting me. But I've had other times where I've used Moonshadow, and before I'm even able to get off, you'll see this swing that he does right there, that dual swing. Before I'm able to do that, the enemy will hit me and interrupt that. So Moonshadow's not too reliable. That's why if I'm doing the dual swords, when I use it, I probably did it accidentally, not on purpose. But if you want to use it to get away from a certain area, say you're, on the edge, or you know what I'm saying, you're facing a humanoid opponent and you're on the edge of a level or something like that, what you do is attack at their shield, and during your deflection, or attack at their block, during your deflection animation, you'll press triangle, and that'll allow you to use Moonshadow. Cherry Blossom, we've already seen, is just the overhead strike that is just like Morning Moon, maybe just not as cool. Water Sword. Water Sword is the ability I was using before. I've told you about Water Sword. It actually leaves you quite vulnerable because you can't move while doing it, and it drains stamina like crazy. So, and it keeps you close to the enemy once you end it. So that can get you fucked up. So if you're going to use Water Sword, know what you're doing first. Windstorm. Windstorm is one of the abilities I've seen people really abuse online. It isn't much of an AoE because it looks like it does do a good area of effect, right? Wrong, because most enemies can strike at you while you're doing it, or strike at you right after you finish doing it, and they'll be able to hit you, especially if they're using a spear like Lee does. Their range is much better than Windstorm's range, so they'll hit you. Windstorm is only to be used primarily against one opponent, and as far as I know, it's made to break blocks. So If you, I've seen people use it to do crazy amounts of damage, but that's because, like I always say, they grinded the shit out of their stats, and it's not about technique. It's just about killing the enemy. But if you wanted to, if you see that your opponent is low on stamina, you're just having trouble getting it the rest of the way, go in close and let them attack, let them, lull them into a false sense of security, because you don't want to try and attack them, get deflected, and then try to use Windstorm. What's going to happen is they're most likely going to hit you, because you'll be, at the time that you hit their guard, you'll reflect backward, and as you're pressing the buttons to make your character, to make William do what you need him to do, the enemy has a chance to retaliate. And if they're in low stance, they're definitely going to be able to get you before you can do Windstorm. Um, Shit, the wife got back home. She got back home quick. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, Earthly Flow here. You see the timing for it? Remember, if you're parrying with the dual swords, always be closer to the enemy. Even with Earthly Flow, it doesn't look like you have to do much timing with Earthly Flow because of the dodge backward that he does. That's just a part of his animation. It actually is literally a part of the attack as well. So it's weird to get used to seeing him move like that. Um, but just take it as the same exact rule for countering anything with the dual swords. With the single sword, you can stay at quite a distance and react to an attack and end up deflecting it or parrying it and continuing into your animation. But if you're doing it with the dual swords, you have to be as close as possible to make sure it works. I'm telling you, I've done Earthly Flow so many times and Heavenly Flow so many times, and I've ended up not getting it to successfully work because the enemy was too far away and I ended up getting hit. Other than that, we got the Strike. I showed you plenty of that. There's Random Slice. I don't use this. It's not really a successful way of moving around in the world. It uses quite a bit of stamina, and if you're going to use stamina, you might as well just sprint. Also, the turning of Random Slice, I can go ahead and show you, but the turning of Random Slice is kind of hard. Oh, I can't show you. I don't have the skills for the skill points, but turning it is harder than it seems. He actually doesn't turn in this demonstration, but if you try to turn, it's kind of like driving a slow car. So you definitely probably want to stay away from Random Slice unless you specifically know something that I don't. If you're thinking you can knock enemies backward perpetually with it, you're not going to be able to do that. I've used it, and it just pushes them aside while doing damage. Um, Also, you can be poked while doing it. You don't have iframes or anything like that, so just if you're going to use Random Slice, just use it effectively. It's not very effective in most situations, but I'm sure you'll find something. And the last thing, and one of the most important things, is Mind's Eye. Like I showed you before, that when at that time where I was actually dodging backward through his attacks, and when the attack would normally have hit you when you're in low stance and you dodge, you'll activate Mind's Eye, and if you have Mind's Eye 2, it actually increases your attack power. Pretty cool. But the main thing to remember about the dual swords is they are all about debilitations. Even though they have attacks that can be used to parry, they're not a primary parry weapon. They're a debilitation weapon. So if you activate, if you have poison swords, I don't know how you would do that because poison swords are really rare, but if you have poison swords or elemental swords, or you apply poison or paralytic effects, or any kind of elemental effect to your swords, you can exploit enemy weaknesses by using another elemental or throwing ninja bombs at them, and at the same time that item is affecting them, you can hit them and make their gauge go up a lot faster because you can hit them so many more times. That is Dual Sword Game. So thank you guys. I will see you later, probably tomorrow. But thanks for tuning in. And remember, use your skill and use your knowledge. No more of this these overuse of your skills in the worst way. Not the skills. It's the overuse of the skills for the weapons. No more of this bullshit. You guys can learn it. I know you can. See you later.